I wanted to share this link with you guys coming from the Wall Street Journal talking about how lumber is showing the warning signs of the economy. Like it's flashing the warning signs now. And this is something that I have been trying to share here on this channel for quite some time about how it is that the lumber market is reflective of the entire economy. And many people said, nah, man, you can't look at lumber. That's not the good indicator. That's not going to be one that's useful. And I'm telling you now that if you do not follow lumber, you are going to miss the bigger picture, because lumber is telling you the story. It is telling you from the very beginning, talking about monetary policy, talking about distribution networks, talking about the demand coming from the builders who are in the market for new construction. It is a sign of everything that has taken place out there. And if you're failing to watch the lumber market, you're going to miss out on all the opportunities to position yourself. So I wanted to share this article with you guys coming from the Wall Street Journal. And again, this is something that I have been trying to share with you guys for quite some time. My experience here at the lumberyard doing retail sales is telling me that the economy is slow, very slow. And it doesn't take a whole lot to look out there and see that happening within the mainstream media, but then to be able to recognize when the shift is taking place. See, everybody can say, "Oh man, it's slow. Just look at all the layoffs that are taking place, how the labor market is weakening, and all these issues that are happening out there." And people can pinpoint that stuff. And to me, that is symptoms, right? Very much like, the issues that you would find in lumber being a symptom. However, when you see the reversal taking place and the demand for lumber starts to pick up, it is going to be very reflective of the economy doing much better. And now we are not seeing that as of yet. Could the time come here in the future as the promise of better interest rates would then spark the idea of people going out there borrowing money to buy homes, and then having those transactions start to pick up? This would be a good sign for the economy. You will see the reflection taking place within the lumber market. See, what's going to end up happening is that if the mortgage rates start to come down, right? Big what if, right? But we're already seeing that happening with the credible threats of a Federal Reserve easing monetary policy by lowering the Fed funds rate. People are hearing this, believing it, thinking about that, and then incorporating that into their strategies, into what it is that they are doing as far as investments go. And you are seeing the mortgages coming down now. Now, are they doing it significantly? Not to the point that it would have this huge reflection inside of the economy saying, "Oh, look, man, the tides have turned." But it shows the signs, right? It shows the signs of what it is that's happening out there, that if you put enough credible threats of easing of financial conditions, it will actually create an easing of financial conditions. And we are seeing that reflective today. If this continues, if this is to continue to push into the future where you have lower interest rates or lower mortgage rates, or the people believing that there's going to be lower rates going into the future, that is going to start to pick up the transactions. When the transactions pick up, I'm talking about homes selling. People put a house out on the market and it actually sells. The home builders, with all their inventory, they start to move that inventory off of their portfolios, essentially off of their balance sheets, out of their possession and into the hands of the buyers. When that starts to happen, you are going to see those builders want to start building again. Now, we are seeing a huge slowdown inside of the idea of new starts, permit issuance. The builders themselves are not feeling confident within this market right now, and that is definitely showing up within the lumber demand. And when you see the mill curtailments taking place like they are today, they are really pulling back on a lot of inventory when it comes to the lumber market. Like, there's not a lot of lumber in the system. I see this. I got a price list today, and on this price list, I was looking at all the, like, from 2x4s all the way up to 2x12, 8 foot up to 20 foot, standing and better stock. And I'm looking at the prices, and there is a dramatic spread between the low and the high. Now, just to give you an idea, right now, lumber futures are at like $520 per thousand, $530 per thousand, somewhere in there. I get this price list, and it's got 2x12 8 footers, right? Our cost for a unit, $420 per thousand, $100 per thousand under the current like futures price. That's how much inventory stock they have of 2x12, 8-foot and 10-footers. Now, if you go on that chart and you look over at the 20-footers, 900 per thousand, more than double the price between the 8 and 10 foot going up to the 20 foot. The 8 and 10s, loads of material. They got tons and tons in inventory of 8 and 10 foot 2x12. The 20 footers, almost none. Almost none, right? You go and you try and search out and find some of the most prime units of lumber out there. 16 footers, 2x6, 2x8, 2x12. These things are getting in short supply. The mills are only producing that which is going to sell. 2x4, 2x6, studs and plate stock. These are the ones that are the most in demand right now. And if you are in a position in which that producing lumber is not very profitable to you, are you going to produce things that are not selling? Or are you going to produce only in which is demand, what is in demand today? Right? 2x4, 2x6, by far the most popular size lumber that you get at a lumber yard is those two particular sizes, 2x4, 2x6, all the different random lengths. If that's the only thing that the mills are producing, what do you think is going to happen to the price of all the rest of the non-A items? Right? You start getting into 2x12 20s and it's at 900 per thousand, almost double that of what the 8 and 10 footers are. This is showing signs that the inventory is incredibly depleted. So think about this. If this continues going into the future, if we have a situation in which that the builders are not excited about building, then the mill curtailments are going to be persistent going into the future. Interfor has already made an announcement that they are pulling back 150 million board feet of lumber until the beginning of the year. And then after that, we have other threats of more mill curtailments and shutdowns going into the future. If things don't pick up by the new year, you're going to find many, many more mills shutting down operations, pulling back on production, and depleting the inventory even more. This is setting us up. This is definitely a setup to have prices just skyrocket. Now, whether or not they're doing it on purpose, I don't believe that this is being done on purpose, just because I've been calling it out for so long. That if you have low prices, anything under $550 per thousand on the futures price, and those mills are not profitable. Why would they produce if there's no profit in it? Well, it's been hovering around $550 per thousand for quite some time, and considering that, oh, we got a B again. Yay, bees. Why is it every video, man? So here did you guys see it? It flew right in front of the camera. So here we are, we're sitting in a situation in which that the mills are not profitable at the less than $550 per thousand, which the lumber futures are about ready to close here in about, what is it, the 8th? And so in next week, right? And inside of a week, those lumber futures are going to close. We're most likely going to find those under $550 per thousand. The mill operations are going to slow down even more, pull even more inventory back. And then if we have a situation in which that the interest rates do come down, if the credible threat of the Federal Reserve cutting rates actually has an impact on the economy that lowers the mortgage rates like we are seeing today, and that is persistent going into the future, at some point, the demand will pick up, right? Once that does, and it pushes those builders into wanting to start new projects, there is not going to be a lot of lumber out there, and you're going to see the prices increase. There is very little doubt in my mind that this will happen. How far out into the future? I could not guess. Keep an eye on those builders and the home builder sentiment when it comes to buyer traffic. That is going to be the key indicator. I've said it for a while now. The buyer traffic is incredibly negative when it comes to the home builder sentiment. Anything below 50 is negative, and something, or it's like somewhere around 30, I think, on the buyer traffic right now when you look at the home builder sentiment. When that turns positive, when that gets up above 50, it's on. It's on. And there's not a lot of lumber out there in the mix. And so when you think about what it is that's going to happen within the lumber game, and all of a sudden this demand for lumber starts to shoot up because these people have signed contract on building a home, and once you sign contract, that project's going to go forward. Regardless, that's inelastic demand. That means they can't postpone it. They have to buy it today. And if there's not a lot available, what's going to happen? Just look for it. Watch those pieces fall into place. All right? Watch the mortgage rates come down. Watch the home builders' sentiment increase from the buyer traffic. When that eventually goes positive, you're going to find that the lumber is not very plentiful in the system. The demand is going to increase and the prices are going to skyrocket. I have very little doubt in my mind that will happen. At what point in the future, I couldn't guess, right? I don't know how far out it's going to take. I just keep watching the home builder sentiment, watching the buyer traffic, and watching the inventory levels continue to deplete. It's only a matter of time. It's set up. Right? Thank you all for being here. We got 18 people watching on this member-only live streams, which I will make it a public video afterwards. But, you know, I like these member-only live streams. The conversations that we have here on the member-only live streams is so much better than having just massive amounts of people coming in and just throwing massive comments out there. We actually keep the conversation close, and that's what I like. All right. Hey, everyone. We got all-nighter up in the house. Neil knows all about bees. He's got a video describing his bee houses. Better bee houses. Nice. I want to do more flips in Gary and putting more demand on lumber. Right on, man. I'm glad you guys had a good time up there. All right. Truckerbot says, hello, everyone. All right. How did your meetup go, Jack? You badass. All right. Pete the Scratchy. Okay. Yo, what's up, UE? What's happening, Space Bun? I love it. Man, so late here. No, you're right on time. We're only 11 minutes into it. Do we buy the home builders first or lumber companies? Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett just bought home builders. Yeah, but see, the thing is like, I don't follow Warren Buffett. I mean, I saw the headlines come out there, but back in the middle of June, I said that I was buying into nail. Right now, that wasn't investment advice. It was just me telling you guys what was that I was feeling here at the lumber yard, and I was taking a chance by buying into a 3 times leveraged ETF, which is not something you do not buy in whole 3 times leveraged ETFs. And all these stock traders came to me, said, don't do that. That's not the right way you handle these things. I bought into it in June, bought every Thursday. I bought a little bit more. I am now sitting at like 60% up on that position. I absolutely, like, no pun intended, nailed it on nail. Here it is, like, I bought in at, like, you know, I think I started buying at $48 or something. It's now trading over $96. That is tracking the home builders. I didn't listen and wait for Warren Buffett to do it. I just thought to myself, man, I'm feeling the winds of change happening here at the lumber yard. It seems like the demand from, like, the calls that I'm getting, the customers who are coming in, the talking that I get from the other vendors and distribution hubs, it seems to me like this isn't getting any worse. Like, it was getting worse all the time. Like, I could feel it. It's worse. It's worse. This isn't good. This is bad. This is worse than the time before. Worse. And then all of a sudden it plateaued out. And I'm like, it's not getting worse. Like, this feels like the bottom, man. Other people may not feel it. To me, this feels like the bottom. So I started jumping in. Sure enough, I was on the day, like damn near to the day. Right? Like, I think I made that video on June 14th, and I think the stock bottomed out on June 16th, and then took off from there. So if it is hold on here one second. I'm sorry, DR Horton. All right, I bought a little bit of DR Horton, and it wasn't much. It was just a little tiny position inside of it. It's done quite well, but it hasn't even come close to what nail has done. So eventually I will get out of nail, right? I mean, when it's like, I mean, I should be taking profits on now, but I still see some movement happening inside of it. I could still see where that thing could have, you know, have some more run up to it. Very dangerous stock. I wouldn't suggest anybody buying into it. That is just the position that I had taken with the risk tolerance that I'm willing to deal with. And if it lost everything inside of it, then that would have been a lesson that I would have had to learn. However, it's done quite well, and it's simply based off of my understanding and feelings of what it is that I'm getting here at the lumber yard, and my understanding of macroeconomics and monetary policy. It positioned me quite well for it. Builders are going to do well. When the builders start to take off and, you know, do their projects, start their, you know, get new home starts, permit issuance, stuff like that, they are going to demand lumber. So the builders are going to take off first, right? They are going to end up selling their excess properties that they have. That's going to give them some cash flow. They're going to want to take advantage of the new buyers that are out there, so they're going to start new projects. When they start those new projects, you're going to see the lumber demand start to pick up. So to me, the builders are going to do well first, right? They got excess inventory that they have to sell off. Once they sell off that excess inventory, they'll have cash flow from that, and then they'll want to start taking advantage of, you know, the buyer market out there getting better. So they'll start new projects. That's when the lumber will take off. So to me, it'll be builders and then it'll be lumber. You can watch the builders move, right? And once they get up there and they start, you know, everybody's like, oh man, the builders are just kicking ass. Well, then you can think, okay, now's the time to start positioning into the lumber market. That's not investment advice. None of that is investment advice, right? And so that's just my understanding of what it is that I would think would happen from the position that I have taken. Right? So you do what you want. I bought nail and wrote it all the way down before Simon mentioned it. Sold it a few weeks later. Simon mentioned it, and it instantly regretted my decision. That makes sense. Yeah, thank you guys. Do you think when builders go up, assets will go down like gold and silver, Bitcoin? I think when the builders go up, it'll be less risk into the economy. Right now, people are feeling a lot of risk in the economy. They're thinking recessionary things are coming. There's like, you know, layoffs are going to be mass layoffs happening or something of that nature. People are feeling this very heavy, right? And when they feel this kind of heavy burden, they want to get out of like risk, things that are based off of risk and financing, right? If you have to have a loan or ever increasing amounts of loan to keep this particular thing going, then most likely people are going to be very worried about that, right? But then if you don't need to borrow money, but it's a fixed asset, like, you know, this thing is solid right here in front of me, right? So now these are two different kind of ideas of what it is that's happening out there, because one is risk, like say, hey, I'm going to lend this person money and then hopefully get that return. The other position is I'm going to take this physical item, right? Once you have the physical item, you're like, okay, whatever happens out there happens, because this is my physical item that I have. Hopefully it doesn't go down in price. So this is the situation that we now face out there, is that people are very thinking of the risk that is associated with giving their money up, right? If I lend my money out there, am I going to get it back? But if I buy this particular chunk of item right here, most likely be gold, then I don't have to worry about whether or not the gold disappears unless somebody steals it or something of that nature. I don't have to take on that secondary risk of having somebody pay me back. So when you take on that sort of thought about it, yes, right now, gold is a position in which that a lot of people are moving into, just simply because they are so worried about what it is that's going to happen within the economy. Is there going to be mass layoffs? Is there going to be foreclosures? Is there going to be a recession? Is there going to be all this stuff? And since they're so panicked and worried about it, they want to position themselves away from that. So, you know, in that sense, I would assume that if you have the builders in a position in which that they are excited or happy with the current economic conditions, then most likely people are not going to be concerned about lending their money out there, right, and worried about it not coming back. That would put less pressure on gold, right? And so yeah, I would say that if the builders are doing well, gold probably won't be. Yeah, that's going into the future. Like, you know, give it time. Like if the builders are active, they're selling their properties off, they're starting new projects, you know, there's a lot of buyers out there, then I would assume at that point gold would be less desired. I think they need liquidity too. Precious metals tend to go down. All right. All night are just politicians are as much smaller population than we have now. Would be a good as accountable to the people representatives to theorize and discuss human interaction, in my opinion, but we only want a handful. Huh, what are you guys talking about? Question that I hope is not off topic, but in your opinion, what are the politicians useful or good for? Entertainment value only? Well, no, I mean, you have to think, like, you know, you have to have some sort of governance, or else people would just, you know, just wouldn't behave properly, you know, wouldn't behave in a way that we were all like, you know, conducive to each other. You know, it's just like we all kind of have to have like at least some sort of rule of guidance that we can follow down. But the problem that I think we face is that most of the time we were supposed to like kind of govern ourselves. And so what the forefathers did, right, when the people who established this nation and, you know, tried to put it in a way that says, hey man, you guys are in charge of yourself, they left us just this side of anarchy, right? They're like, hey man, we got just barely enough government to kind of guide you guys in the right direction if you can hold on to this thing. The problem with that is it just kept getting more intrusive, more intrusive, more intrusive, more intrusive, right? So now we look at them and say, hey, what are these politicians good for? It was just like, well, they do too much, you know, for one, they're just too involved in our life. And that is an unfortunate consequence of people saying, hey, they should do something. The moment that we say they should do something, it's basically saying, okay, we need to go into debt and give them a bunch of power and then take away our freedoms. That's what we end up saying when we say we should do something. So ultimately, the politicians are not necessarily there to be good or entertaining or anything like that. They were meant to be in a position in which that they can allow us to behave in a way that we felt was most appropriate for ourselves, and meanwhile be able to interact with each other without, you know, too many problems. I don't know how to put it, like, you know, doing trade between each other without, you know, fighting. I don't know how to, like, you know, kind of describe it, but ultimately it was just there just enough to keep us from destroying ourselves. I don't know how to, like, you know, describe it, but it's like ultimately we had to be in a position in which that we would take responsibility for ourselves and understand that we have a obligation to protect somebody else's property, right? Because by protecting somebody else's property, that's protecting our own property. If we don't protect somebody else's property, then who's going to be there to help us protect ours, right? And so now with this sort of mindset is what we really should have been in. But now it's shifted, and now it's just like, well, you have too much property and we have to take it from you because that's what government does, you know? And it's just like, that's not really what you guys were here for, you know? All right, what time is it? I got to go, guys. I got just 5 more minutes here. All right, without government, you would end up like that Always Sunny episode about no rules at the bar. McPulleys would ruin it immediately. I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know if like government makes us like behave properly. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily true. You know, I mean, I think they kind of give us at least some sort of idea that there is rights and obligations and measures to prevent other people from like stealing or doing things like that. And so with this kind of idea, people think, well, if you take away government, all of a sudden there's going to be this like anarchy and chaos and crime and all these other things that come from it. And I don't see it that way. Like, I really honestly think that the people could govern themselves. And if you were to do things like smart contracts where the government and court systems and all the judicial stuff, if you just make them irrelevant, like, that would be awesome, right? Just like literally conduct yourself in a way that they are just made irrelevant in our lives. And then that way we would just be limited with just a small amount of government, right? But we don't really do that. It should be a baseline foundation, and I think people start to use it like a cheat code to take responsibility off of themselves. Yeah. Stable coins is going to bring a forever debt system that will never die. It very well could. I mean, at least for our, you know, for our lifetime. Or the hard life living with the government and living in a society we have today. You have to pick your hard. Anarchy has never and doesn't exist, in my opinion. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I would like to get into the smart contracts idea. I would too. I'm back. Been at the Sandwich, Illinois Fair for 3 days, church, and been tired. Also, get my Orthodox Christian Christmation? What is that? Coming up this weekend. So much happening at once for me. Right on. Haven't heard of it before except a couple of times here. With the smart contract thing? Oh yeah, it's gonna happen. Sandwich fair sounds like a place I want to be. Yeah, no kidding, right? Afternoon, all visiting with the kids. Right on Deja Vu. Okay, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to share that article coming out of the Wall Street Journal, which is basically sharing with you the same things that I have been saying for months now, and that the lumber is a sign of the economic times, and that when you see the lumber demand falling, when you see mill curtailments that are happening, when you see the inventory depletion of magnitudes that we are experiencing today, it's not a good sign. It's flashing the warning signs. When we see the economic times change, when the financial conditions change, when or if the Federal Reserve lowers rates, and the people's perception is that there's going to be easier financial times coming, that will bleed into the mortgage markets, and you will find easier economic times coming from that. The buyers will come back in. You will see transactions start to take place. The home builders are sitting on a lot of inventory. They will be selling those excess amounts of houses that they have that have been sitting empty. And when that happens, they were going to want to jump back into the game. Just watch it happen. It's like almost like watching the bouncing ball, right? You know, it's just like it's going to go down this particular path. As of right now, it's devastated, right? Mill curtailments, inventory depletions, more shutdowns, no demand really coming from the builders, but things may be changing very soon. Uneducated Economist, you let me know.